So there's a lot going on this week in terms of the conversation about relationships, black love, black men, black women, and all the influencers and relationship gurus and people on YouTube and so on and so forth. I'm new to a lot of this, but as far as the online space, but I do think it's important to address some of these things and provide a level of balance in terms of how we're thinking about it. So the topic of the week has been Mr. Derrick Jaxn, and I gave my initial thoughts in a video, but I'll be able to speak more at length about it in this video. Um, man, Derrick, I'm laughing not to make light of the situation, but just because it's so chaotic, and some of the responses have been humorous in terms of not just people tweeting back and responding to what happened, but him and his wife. Uh, So for those that don't know, Derrick Jaxn is like a YouTube, Instagram relationship guru giving women advice on relationships, so on and so forth. And he's been exposed for cheating on his wife, even though he was very vocal about don't cheat and telling women not to deal with that kind of stuff. And he even went as far as saying that he won't have sympathy for men that cheat or that are promiscuous. So he's basically looking super hypocritical, and I still stand by that and acknowledge that, right? It's completely messed up to be out here trying to sell a certain idea and pushing very hard on that idea, but you're not living it. The thing that I would like to address though is, one, yes, there's some accountability that's needed there, and I think that is fully there. No one's making excuses for Derrick. I don't think I see that. I don't see anybody saying, well, it's okay for him to do what he did. The issue is that he's articulating a certain thing and then not living that. So we all agree that's hypocrisy. And I really wonder if this was strategic on his end and his team or wife or whoever. I don't know for sure, but I just think it's so convenient that he recently released a book about how to heal together without hurting each other, with him and his wife on the cover. And I don't think it's just a coincidence that this controversy came out afterward. And even when he put out the apology, there was a link to the book. So this worked out way too well. He's gotten coverage on certain platforms that he's never gotten before. So this just seems too convenient. So I really wonder if it was strategic as far as the timing of all this, because it's being redirected to a book. His followers are going up, and I'm sure his book sales went up. So I wonder if it was strategic in that regard. But I want to address, once again, I try to give this content toward men. Obviously, sometimes women view it and appreciate what's being said, but I have to address what happens amongst men as we address some of these topics. And the responses I see for Derrick is, once again, men not even having an issue with the fact that he cheated, but the issue with the fact that he cheated, although he spoke against cheating. Derrick is accused of being a simp and pandering to women. And while I do think that exists, right? People that are out here just trying to get women on their side. Sometimes men play the emotional guy that connects with women on an emotional level just to get in their pants. So there is that level of you just BSing in order to get women sexually. I think that exists. That's obviously true. But we have to have some level of nuance and not just say anybody that's articulating something, any man that's articulating something that women agree with and support, that they're automatically simping or a coward or pandering. That's not always the case. And we have to have more nuance in terms of how we're addressing different men that speak into these situations. So my argument, as it relates to Derrick, is not to defend his actions, but it is for us to take in the positive things from his message. He was very vocal in a lot of his videos about calling out stuff that we as men know that we do and helping women to not fall prey to that. And I think that a lot of men don't want to hear that, but I'll get into that later. But that's the critique that Derrick is getting. I think the root of it is a lot of men didn't want him spreading the information that he was spreading. And it only makes it worse that he wasn't living his message. But we need to be able to wrestle with the message and understand why do we even have an issue with some of the stuff he was saying. If he's not living in line with it, fine. But as I said in the previous video, if a crackhead says something to you that was true, it doesn't matter that they were a crackhead. Either it's true or not. Either it's valid or not. And as I said before, some of the things he pointed out were helpful in terms of having healthy dynamics in relationships. Now, I'm not saying this as a full endorsement of all of his content. I haven't consumed all of it, but I have seen some helpful stuff. And I'm being real. I recognize that a lot of us as men didn't like the stuff he was putting out there. And I would argue that some of that is because we may be the examples of negativity that he was speaking against. So we got to deal with that. The response to the Derrick Jaxn situation has exposed some things that are toxic. I think that many of us view all of this content that people are putting out about relationships through the lens of what we've been through. And sometimes you have to push that aside and deal with things in a sober-minded way. So what this means is some men look at Derrick Jaxn's content and say he's full of it because they've had negative relationships with women. Things have went bad. They've dealt with women that were trash. So they don't want to hear him speaking positively to women or affirming women and talking about male accountability because they think that they were wronged in their situation. So you can't hear Derrick's message because you're so focused on the fact about the women that did you wrong. But you have to push aside how you felt and just examine the message independent of your experience. It's the same way with women that have used some of the Manosphere, Red Pill, or Kevin Samuels content. There is something there that you can take from it, but because so many women may look at that content and think, well, I've had situations where the man was in the wrong, so I want to hear this. We have to be more emotionally intelligent than that, than to just look at content and dismiss it because it doesn't fit the narrative that we prefer or it doesn't fit what our experience have been. We almost recognize that our experiences happen in our life. But just because it's common in our life, that's still a very small percentage in terms of the whole world or the whole country. So your experience with men or women is not a blanket indictment or endorsement of all men or women. So I'm encouraging us to have more nuanced thinking, and specifically for men, not to call other men simps or panderers just because they say things that women agree with. It's more nuanced than that. Does that exist? Sure. But be more intelligent and more emotionally mature to pick apart the argument of what someone's saying rather than just calling them a simp because they didn't say what you wanted to hear. I tune into a lot of podcasts. One of them is the Brilliant Idiots podcast. And here is a clip from the Brilliant Idiots podcast of the hosts are Charlamagne the God and Andrew Schultz. And here's some comments that were made about Derrick Jaxn.
When you out there saying, man, you don't have no sympathy for men that cheat on their wives, guess what you're experiencing right now, Derrick?
Oof.
No sympathy.
Oof. Yo, you know what was most frustrating about this guy?
Talk to me.
Is that even though we all knew he was full of shit, what he was saying, we can't really disagree with.
Oh, well, he's right.
You know, because he'd be like, don't cheat on your girl. And we'd be like, yeah, motherfucker, but shut up.
Stupid ass.
Is that why you didn't like him, Rex?
I don't even know why. It's like, nah, I don't like the dude because I think he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. So I would say that I think a lot of men don't know exactly why they don't like Derrick Jaxn. But I have my opinion on that. And once again, I would say part of it is because he was exposing toxic behavior, right? So some of us are the men that he speaks of, and that's why we don't like him. Specifically, I would say there are some men that are cheating on the women that they're with right now, and they're hiding it. So they don't want Derrick Jaxn out here giving them clues or hints on how to know when a man is cheating. Some men cheated and lost that relationship. They know they lost a good one and they live with that regret every day. So Derrick Jaxn's content pisses them off because it's like, why are you over here talking to women about the things that I am doing or currently trying to hide or am ashamed of? So while there are some that may have grievances that are valid, right? I can't speak about every particular experience. So if you don't feel represented, sorry. But if the shoe doesn't fit, then don't wear it. But I'm speaking to the ones that it applies to. That is so many people's situation, that they have screwed up a relationship due to cheating or due to not being emotionally sensitive, not being emotionally intelligent, not being a good communicator. And these are things that Derrick typically spoke about in his content. And there are a lot of men that would rather blame the women for unsuccessful relationships rather than hearing some level of accountability. So that is why a lot of guys are pissed off with Derrick's content. They recognize, if you really dig through it, some may not have an argument against what he's saying, depending on exactly what's being said. But I'll get to some specifics later where he's actually giving advice, and I'll show you where there's not really an issue with what was said. The issue is he wasn't living that, but also our toxic mentality can't accept what was being presented. Other reason that guys pretty much hate on Derrick, and once again, I'm not here to defend Derrick, I'm just providing some balance. Let's be real about why men have issues with Derrick. In addition to him exposing some toxic behaviors that we're living that we don't want to get exposed, in addition to that, Derrick has a lot of followers and he's selling books and he has a lot of attention on him. Men hate on other men all the time because they don't have the platform or influence that they have. So that's part of it. Men hate on Derrick because some of their girlfriends or wives are listening to his content and then bringing it back to them, and that pisses them off. Some men wish they had 1 million followers or whatever to sell a book or a product or market your music. People are pissed because the guy has a bigger platform than them. That's part of it. Also, he clearly works out a lot. He's Diesel. Men hate on other men being more fit than them all the time. So I think all these things mixed together is why he gets a lot of the hate. I have yet to see an argument he made that was completely off base or crazy, and then the argument be picked apart and shown how that's completely foolish to say that. I've yet to see that. It's more so just like Andrew said, yeah, you're right, but shut up. We don't want you putting that information out there. So, you know, it gets deeper than just calling someone a panderer or a simp or whatever the case may be, because we need to look at the content of what is being said. So in addition to the Brilliant Idiots content, I have something else for you guys to listen to. I'm pulling in a lot of different resources. I feel like I got notes, I got things for you to listen to, because there's a lot of stuff going on here. But I do think these additional resources can help us see exactly where things are going wrong. So I have a clip from Gilly the King, and this is a post that happened a while ago before this whole situation exploded, where Gilly said something and then Derrick responded to it. So first you're going to hear Gilly, second you're going to hear Derrick. And this clip was recently going viral after Derrick got exposed because people were saying, hey, this is why we shouldn't trust what Derrick was saying. What I'm pointing out is, regardless of what he did behind the scenes, the message is still the message and it's still valid. So here's an example of that. Listen to this.
She said, Gilly, I've been with my boyfriend since February. She said, Gilly, I've been with my boyfriend since February. I completely trusted him, and I've been faithful to him. And I was scrolling down Instagram earlier and noticed that he follow a bunch of hoes and be liking their pics. Now, I feel like this is completely disrespectful towards me, and I don't know if I should forgive him for this. What you think I should do, Gilly? Well, the first thing I think you should do is grow the fuck up. Fuck you mean he liking pictures on Instagram? That's what Instagram is for. You know how many bitches in relationship with niggas and they putting up with niggas fucking 8, 7, 9, 12 different bitches a week, and you mad at your nigga because he liking pics on Instagram? Bitch, he just liking the cakes. He could be out here putting icing on the cakes. Fuck is wrong with you? He liking a bitch picture who live in Sweden and you mad. And the truth is, you be on Instagram looking at niggas just because you don't press that button don't mean you don't like it, bitch. You just like it in your head.
Now, I don't know if this dude just did this strictly for entertainment, but I do know a lot of dudes who think the exact same way, and they dead ass serious about it. And what I also know is that every dude that want to justify his bullshit uses the same 3-step process to do so. Rinse and repeat. Like, step 1 is to somehow invalidate your feelings as if you're wrong for having them, or in this case, equate them to that of a child that you need to grow up from being. Step 2 is to make a comparison between himself and the absolute lowest common denominator extreme of other men out there that ain't got shit to do with this. You know, because you should feel good that he didn't go all the way to cheating. He stopped short of just sugarcoated disrespect. Then step 3 is to turn it around on you. You know, make a false equivalence between his actions that he knows is wrong and yours. Whereas if you did what he did, if you actually did that, you know the relationship would be over with. Like, for example, every woman out there has dated a guy seriously. Maybe you with him right now. They got a homeboy that looks better, got a better shape up. He got more money. Maybe he works out more, something. Y'all know the homeboy of the dude that you was dating that whenever you met him, your first thought deep down was, damn, I should have been a little bit more patient. That homeboy. Let's say when you was with your man and you met his homeboy and you saw that his homeboy was a little girthy down there in those sweatpants of his, that you had the audacity to in any shape, form, or fashion express that to the homeboy. I mean, something so subtle as just staring for too long, or follow him afterwards on IG and liking that picture of him in his sweatpants, since you know disrespecting the relationship is what Instagram is for, and there are other girls out there swallowing the eggplant. You could be doing that, but you just double tapping on a picture. Y'all know if you did that, your dude would call you every disloyal thought, whole epithet in the book. Why? Because there's a difference between having a thought up here and expressing that thought, whether directly or indirectly, and giving it life. Like, there's a difference between hating your job so much you want to set the building on fire and then get...
She said, Gilly, I've been with my...
You know, the problem here is that is a dysfunctional mentality as far as what Gilly's expressing. That's not how relationships should work. That may be something that's more so like a transactional situation. It definitely falls more in line with no romance, no love, but more so a hired wife kind of situation. It's like she's just there to give you sex, stand there and look pretty, and not have opinions. Just be quiet.
I'm Olivia Morgan, intake coordinator here at the WholeBro Mission. I'm here to pass on a little information about how you can join us in helping men in need seek licensed professional counselors nationwide. Number 1, ask. Ask if your employer participates in matching donations. Many employers will match your gift to a nonprofit. We are a 501c3, so all gifts are tax deductible. Number 2, pass. Pass this video as well as our website on to others so that they are aware of our services and our need of support. And number 3, give. If you're able to, please consider giving. The proceeds remove barriers for men seeing a culturally competent mental health professional, and they support our upcoming HBCU book tour. Thank you for your time.
That's not how relationships work if there's love in it. Any relationship requires a level of working through difficulties and compromise. What he demonstrated in that clip was no level of compromise. I don't want to change what I'm doing. The emotions that you're presenting to me or the views you're presenting to me are invalid. I don't think it's serious as you're making it, so I'm just going to invalidate it and then tell you you're childish for feeling that way and then dismiss it completely. That's dysfunctional. And even though a lot of us do it and have seen it happen, that's dysfunctional. So in this particular situation, I believe Derrick's response is a lot more healthy than Gilly's response, because he's pointing out the reality that even if that is the norm, or even if that's what's right as far as what Gilly's presenting, it's still not going to be held up in a consistent way. Why? Because every man knows you don't want your woman out here liking some other man's pictures, especially if it's something that leads toward under the belt or his body or anything like that. You know that's not a good look for you, and that hits your pride when everyone else sees that your woman, your wife, is out here liking other men's pics like that, especially if it's something that's more explicit. And even if you don't mind her doing that, you don't dismiss the concerns of your partner without at least trying to understand. there are situations where you may be dealing with a partner that overthinks or that makes something bigger than what it is. And you can talk through that. I'm not saying you can't challenge your partner at all on things that they feel, because we recognize that not all feelings are true, but he didn't even open the door for that. So once again, what's happening is, because Derrick cheated, now we're saying, forget what he said and let's just agree with whoever opposed him. And I think, realistically speaking, what Gilly presented is very toxic. It's dysfunctional. It might be normal, but it's a very evasive and gaslighting tactic where it's like, well, let me put it back on you and make you doubt what you're feeling. If you want a relationship like that, then so be it. If you want relationships where there is no give and take, there is no compromise, there's no opportunity to express how one feels and then work through it, then so be it. But I would argue that healthy relationships have to open that door for that. But so many of us men are not in situations where we actually are working with a woman as a partner. We're just using her as a resource, like I said, for sex, as a trophy wife, to make me look good, and to just be there to support whatever I'm doing. Don't argue with me. Don't give me no lip. Don't disagree with me. That's not a real relationship, though. That's just, once again, a hired hand that's just here to play the role of the person I'm in a relationship with. So you personally would have to decide, do you want this situation that looks more like Donald Trump and Melania, where you're just there, where the female's just there to play a role when you know it's not really anything serious or any love there? Or do you want an actual relationship? And that requires more work and that requires more character. So I'm arguing for actual relationships that include love and working through difficulties, not the Melania Trump role where you just stand there, look pretty, and do what I tell you to do and shut up. So it depends on what you want. But once again, I'm prioritizing Black family, Black love, Black communication, Black relationships, Black community. And that has to go toward relationships being less transactional. You do this for me, I do this for you, we keep it moving, you shut up. It has to be a little bit deeper than that. And I ultimately think that this is super childish. I remember in high school, the joke was, or the saying was, don't be out here saving. And what that meant was, amongst men, we would say, if you're dealing with women, don't be out here saving, which meant don't get your emotions involved. Don't actually care about what she's doing. Just keep it physical. And when a guy got to a point where his emotions were affected by what the woman did, the girl he was dating did, then it would be, oh, you getting weak. You out here saving. You want to keep her. You want to stay in a relationship and be exclusive. If you wanted those things, that was considered less than masculine, because the ideal was, don't worry about relationships right now. We just supposed to be out here getting as many as you can. Don't get too connected to one. And it's unfortunate that this high school, middle school mentality, 40 and 50-year-old men are still thinking that way. Getting in relationships with women, but keeping them at arm's length emotionally. And that is why there's so many stories of women talking about being in relationships with men and they feel like there's a wall up. Many of us as men have accepted, been through a lot of situations where we had trust broken, people betrayed us, specifically women, specifically a relationship that went bad in high school. And that mentality affects us for the rest of our lives if we don't work through the trauma or the frustration of what that did to us. And the end result, when you don't work through that, is dealing with women like how Gilly described. You be quiet. You just sit there and be the woman, be the pretty woman. Don't be arguing with me. Don't be giving me no lip. Don't have no opinions. Don't have no feelings. You just play your role. And that's more of a transactional approach that many of us settle for that, though. We don't want to have a real relationship because that's too hard. And if I actually get emotionally invested in you and care about what you do, then you have the opportunity to hurt me. So many of us don't want to open that door. So we deal with women in this hands-off way where it's just, I'm a smash and I might wipe you, but just know I'm still going to be out here. Which leads me to my last clip, which is Kevin Samuels, which I think he is growing in popularity and a lot of Black men are sharing his content. I'm not going to attack him personally or anything like that, but I will attack this argument that is being presented here. Listen to this.
She has to understand that I'm with you for reasons outside of your fitness, femininity, beauty. I'm with you because I've chosen to be with you for the long haul. However, when nature calls, I'm going to go over here. And here are the rules. No kids. Bring home no kids, no diseases. Don't embarrass you in public. Don't put the family at risk. Those are the general rules. They used to be accepted. And the women who have these lifestyles, they're around other women who have these lifestyles and they don't talk about it. Or if they do talk about it, they say boys will be boys, men are men. And if you can't handle it, ladies, leave. I'm serious. Leave, because men are not going to change. And it's time for men to stop lying about it, trying to act like you're these new moral men. You cannot live this way. Very few men generally choose to not have relations with other women. And you're a foolish woman, in my opinion, if you have a man on this level and you leave because he's sleeping, having sex with other women. So what? Eddie Murphy said, yes, we've effed. We effed. That's right, we effed. But I make love to you. That's right. We show you we love you because we come home to you. We share our time, resources, money, everything else with you. And if you don't understand this, ladies, I don't know what you want to hear.
Yeah, so that's a lot. So this idea of high value men is super important here. He's talking specifically about high value men. If you are of that value, then there's an understanding that he'll step out, and women should be okay with that because of what he brings to the table. The issue is the people sharing this content are not the small percentage of high value men that Kevin speaks of. So the people that share the content, this has been a thumbs up to men that are not the high value men that he speaks of. And the way this is playing out in the atmosphere is men have just been given a thumbs up to cheat. You should be able to cheat. It's the women that are crazy for expecting monogamy. That's how this is hitting the atmosphere. And that's the problem. I wouldn't even believe that that's appropriate, even in a high value man situation. However, that is something that people do, right? That is a thing. Now, whether the masses should accept it, that's where I would disagree. That's something that is prescriptive to others. I think it has lots of flaws. One, to begin with, the reason behind the cheating. I said in a previous video that you can't earn your way into cheating. But once again, I think it's important for the men that are not high value to understand that this isn't an endorsement for you to then go cheat. And the reality is, if you do want to do that, whether you're high value or not, the manly or masculine way to handle that is to have that conversation up front. But so many men aren't doing that. There is no understanding of, I bring this to the table, so let's have an open relationship. Nobody says on the first date with a woman, can we have an open relationship? Some do that, but that's not the norm. What happens is playing along, lying and deceiving that you're okay with monogamy, and then cheating after the fact and hoping that she stays. And that is the problem, that if you're not standing up and articulating up front, that's what you want to do. I don't think it's healthy to begin with, as far as the reasons why people are stepping out. It's not just biology. Men can control their sex drive. Men can do it. It's just a matter of whether they're going to choose to work on it or not. And unfortunately, what Kevin demonstrated with this clip is the reality that many men have accepted. And that reality is that all of us cheat. It's just natural. It's innate. It's biological. I don't think that's true. I think it's just that many of us, maybe even most of us, have not learned self-control and are deeply insecure. And that leads to cheating. Not being able to control your sex drive and having insecurities that you constantly need the affirmation of a woman being willing to sleep with you, even outside of your wife. It's not biology that makes men cheat. It's insecurity and lack of self-control. No one is biologically predisposed to cheat. And it's BS to communicate to women that you have to just accept this because this is the way that we are. That's not true. There are so many men out here that are faithful to their wives. So it's not right for you to project your dysfunction onto the rest of men and say that you can't do anything better than this because we can and we are. And two, it's BS to project that onto women and make them seem like they're crazy for expecting monogamy, especially when that was the agreement up front. I want the men that are trying to live that type of dynamic to say that up front. And if you get a woman that agrees to that you want an open relationship, fine. But so many are full of it and not communicating that up front and then getting mad when there are consequences. And then they get mad when folks like Derrick Jaxn put that content out exposing the BS that they're putting women through. That's the reality of what's going on, and we're not talking about that layer. So there's also a moral aspect here. If you have that type of mentality where cheating is just okay because you think it's biological, then that's your morals. But I would think regardless of your morals or religious views, transparency and honesty and clear communication amongst adults is important. So are you communicating that up front to the woman that you're dealing with is what's going to be huge here. Once again, just because this dysfunction is common doesn't mean that it should be accepted. Especially, it's foolish to try to communicate this idea of acceptance to the people that it damages. So many men get in these situations where, because of their lack of self-control or insecurity and need for constant validation from women, attention, text me back, DM me, come sleep with me, because of those unresolved issues that can be resolved through therapy, because we suppress it and never deal with it, we end up cheating in relationships where we agree to be monogamous and destroying Black families. So you got kids growing up without a father around. You got women that are jaded because they think all men cheat because they can't seem to find one that is consistent with his actions and words, to include Derrick Jaxn. There is so much communal impact that this mentality that Kevin is suggesting or advocating for, the communal impact is terrible. As someone that deals in the counseling space, it destroys families. Even if there is some agreement, it still destroys families. So it's not as simple as that. As someone that's thinking from things from a holistic perspective, not men just getting what they want from women and women shutting up, but thinking from things from a holistic communal perspective, this has been damaging and is damaging and will continue to be damaging. So yes, men have sex drives. Yes, men see women and want to sleep with them. But no, the idea that we can't control that is BS. We can, it's a matter of that choice. And so many men are settling rather than leveling up, finding a level of security as a man, independent of how women respond to you. We don't try to go that route. It's easier, and it's a crabs in a barrel mentality to just say, well, this is how I am. You adjust to me. Monogamy is not outrageous, and it's not foreign. It's very much so possible. And the reality is many of us want women, right? But we also don't want to meet the standard that they're requiring of us. But the reality is, if you want something and you don't meet the standard, either you meet the standard or you find something else to where you can meet the standard. But instead of doing that, instead of finding that small group of women that are open to that open relationship dynamic, we're trying to get women that want monogamy to adjust their standards and lower them for us because of our lack of self-control and insecurity. If you want to understand this a bit more, I would recommend my book, Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths to Break the Black Family. It delves in deeper about how men view themselves and how if we don't have a proper view of masculinity, it ends up destroying families. And a lot of it goes back to how we were raised and our dynamic with our father. So I wouldn't simplify it to biology. I would beg us to dig a little bit deeper. Why can't you keep it in your pants?